Today, we're going to count down the presidential margin in each state in the 1984 election. This was the Reagan landslide. We'll see which state was the widest and if any of them were even close. So first, let's take a look at the top line numbers. We've got Reagan at a massive 525 electoral votes. He carried 49 states, and that was worth 58.8% nationally. Walter Mondale took the loss. He got just 13 electoral votes out of one state in D.C., and that was worth 40.6% of the vote. So nationally, for Reagan, he won by 18.2%. Let's see how that looks in each individual state. So let's get onto the map. And these are the electoral votes from 1984. We're going to use shading. Any margin that's 10% or more is the darkest color. The very lightest would be under 1%, so 4 levels of shading. So let's start the countdown, and including the districts, number 53 out of 53, the widest margin in the entire country in that Reagan landslide was in Washington, D.C., and that was won by Walter Mondale. His margin was 71.7%. So now that we got that out of the way, the next 51 of these in the countdown are all going to go toward Reagan. So you're going to see a lot of red on this map. The widest state in the country was Utah, and that was just under 50%. We still had 3 other states over a 40% margin. Starting with the widest, it's Idaho, then Wyoming. Then we've got Nebraska. Now we've got 8 states that were between a 30 and a 40% Reagan margin. Let's go through them. First, we've got Oklahoma. Then in the Northeast, we've got a state not known to be extremely red, but back then, New Hampshire. It was one of the reddest states. Then we'll head to the extreme Northwest. We've got Alaska. Then a couple of neighboring states. It's Nevada and Arizona. Then we've got Kansas, North Dakota. And in the Southeast, it's the state of Florida. We're still in extreme landslide margins for Reagan, but he is under 30%. He's actually under 29 in Colorado. Just a little under that, we've got South Carolina. Now he's under 28% in Texas. Then we've got South Dakota. And in the East Coast, Virginia is the last state over a 25% margin. So a little bit under that, we've got Maine's 2nd congressional district. Then in the Deep South, it's Mississippi. Then in the Sun Belt, it's North Carolina. Just barely under that, we've got Indiana. Back into the Deep South, Louisiana. Then we've got Big Sky Country, Montana. Still over 22% in the South, it's Alabama. Then we've got Arkansas. Then all the way in the Northeast, it's Maine at large. Now we're in the bottom half. In the Northeast, it's Connecticut. Then we've got nearby New Jersey. We're still over 20% in Kentucky. Then in the Southwest, it's New Mexico. We'll go into the Southeast now and do Georgia. The last state over 20% is Missouri, coming in right at 20. Just a 1/10% less than that, we've got Delaware on the East Coast. Slightly narrower than that, it's Maine's 1st congressional district. And in even 19, we've got a Rust Belt state, it's Michigan. Then it's neighboring Ohio, around 17%. In the Northeast, it's a really blue state today, it's Vermont. Just over 16, we've got Tennessee. Right at about the same percentage all the way on the West Coast, it's California, that was Reagan's home state. Let's stay on the West Coast, we'll go up north. We've got Washington, that was just under 13%. Just about the same margin is Illinois. Then we'll go back to the West Coast and plug in the missing state, that's Oregon. Now we're into the top 10. Number 10 is the blue state of Hawaii, 11.3. Still over 10%. Number 9 is a super red state today. It's West Virginia. Now we're finally into single digits. These are the likely margins. Number 8 is Wisconsin at just over 9. At 8% is New York. A couple of states between 7 and 7.5%. We've got Iowa and Pennsylvania. Number 4, the last state over 5%, coming in at 5.5 is Maryland. For number 3, we're going under a 4% margin. It's Rhode Island. Number 2, the narrowest state that Reagan won was Massachusetts. That was 2.8%. And we've got one state left. That's number 1. It's Mondale's home state of Minnesota. The margin there was about 0.2%. So that's the countdown and the map. And this is an undisputed, objective landslide election. It's almost hard to imagine that this could even happen. But throughout all that, it's still funny that Mondale was able to win the widest margin and the narrowest. Everything in between is pure red and pure Reagan. Of course, D.C. is always going to be extremely, extremely blue, even at a red landslide. But Mondale barely hung on even in his own state. So we could easily never see a 50-state landslide. But this might be as close as we're going to get. And there's really not much to say here. Relative to the rest of the map, sure, Reagan did a little bit worse in some of the Rust Belt states and the bluer states that we would think of today. But when you're winning Hawaii, California, and Vermont by double digits, I don't know how much it really matters. There's all kinds of weird things you could point out on here, like West Virginia voted to the left of Hawaii, and New Jersey and Connecticut voted to the right of Kentucky. Some of these states not voting extremely different than how they would vote today. Iowa is not too far off, but especially Missouri is voting almost identical to how it voted in 24. But most of these states are voting 10, 20, 30, sometimes 40 or more points differently than how they would vote today. Always fascinated to see what could happen here from one election to the next. Sometimes things change dramatically every 4 years. Sometimes they take a few cycles. But this map is an epic blowout. It's loaded with crazy stats. But as far as margins go, this is the countdown for the 1984 election. So let me know in the comments. What do you think about this landslide? Even though it's almost completely red, which states stand out to you the most? Do you think Reagan could have actually got Minnesota if he really wanted it? Why was Mondale only barely able to win just one state? Which states do you think have changed the most since this election? Let me know what you think down below on your way out. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Join if you'd like to support the channel. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.